Hey everyone, Eggman here with another video, and today we have a top 16 breakdown for the first Grand Open we've ever had for this card game. It was in Palm Springs this last weekend, and I also was lucky enough to have the opportunity to work this event as well, so I was doing the production for it. So if you guys saw the live stream for it, I was the man in the chair in the background for all of the scenes, the production, all the widgets moving around and stuff. So if you guys enjoyed the live stream, I hope you guys did. That's just the moral of it. I worked really hard on it. Shouts to Brian for also helping me get ready and just the setup for everything. Play for giving me the opportunity. And both of our commentators, both Doa and Hoang, they were fantastic this weekend too, and make sure to check them out. So if you guys want to see the live stream, it is on the Play TCG Stadium Twitch account. So I have both of the day 1 and day 2 linked on my website, which is also linked in the description of this video, and just kind of going from there. But it was a 2-day event, 132 players. We had 8 rounds of best of 3 Swiss on day 1 to a top 16 best of 3 day 2, and then we did have this bracket here, and it's pretty much updated until the end, which spoilers, Tim won the event. So honestly, also, I know I just spoiled it, but if you guys haven't seen the finals for it, it's pretty crazy. The last match I think is a really good one, and even though it's white aggro versus red Terrasaur, 2 aggressive decks, it was really down to the wire. I think it was a great match for both players. But going on into this breakdown itself, we did have these top 16 decks, and probably the first thing you've noticed, I know I've been talking for a minute already, but there's so much yellow in this top 16. Pretty crazy. Something that took me by surprise. I was not expecting yellow to do super good. Additionally, there's no Novas in the top 16 either, so just almost like a swap between the two from a lot of these events in general. So 5 Fabled Beasts ended up making it in the top 16, and in general, we'll talk about it a little bit more, but I think just the fact that Nova isn't as powerful, and I think it's probably one of the better matchups against yellow, means that yellow does have a kind of a spot in the meta. And then we also had 4 red Terrasaur, nothing too crazy there, white aggro and white control taking 2 spots, and then purple just taking 5 spots between the 2 archetypes, and then purple taking 2 spots itself. And we're gonna go over both, especially since like what I've named purple aggro is maybe not like the most up to like the 100% kind of name for it, but it's really hard to categorize purple. It's very flexible in its deck building and in its play style, and it's generally doesn't have like a theme for, at least for a kind of high-end boss monster. But we're going to look at each one of these archetypes, starting with our first place list. So this is Tim Rivera's red Terrasaur, and I was asked several times leading up to this weekend, what did I think I was going to win, and it was 100% this deck. I think this is still the strongest deck in the game. It is incredibly powerful. The fact that it can also pivot to the defense at times, I think, is very strong. There are a couple of creative builds, like even though red Terrasaur is pretty linear in the idea that you want to just kind of hit face and be powerful, I think there are some decision points. So you will see some creative choices between all 4 of the decks that did get into this top 16, and it's just really strong in what it gets to do. Starblast Draw is very good. Burning Force, I think, honestly, I'll say it, like, and Doa said this during the event as well, Burning Force is probably the most powerful card in the game. At least it is the card that you have to actively play around if you want to be doing well. If you do not play around this card, it can just 2-for-1 you. It can just get you so much advantage for if you are playing the Burning Force, and it's just in a really good spot. So definitely one of the MVP cards today that we like. As the guy who was bringing up the card images on stream, this was like the most proc card every time we saw it. Ice Shield obviously is still very strong, but it's not as needed in aggressive decks at times. But I don't know. It didn't seem as impactful as a card this weekend as it did for the launch event weekend. So we'll see kind of how it develops from there. But honestly, it's just like, we'll look at some lists didn't even play any copies of it, which we'll look into as well. But otherwise, just pretty standard for what we want. Dilophosa is very strong. Dino Man's very strong. Beardy, like these 3 are probably the most just the best cards in this archetype, and then Giganorex also very good too. And then just a couple of choices of side decks. So Durham Dyna, very good at being able to push for game against some of the control matchups. Andromeda, if your opponent is playing a lot of those Nexuses you want to get rid of. Flamefish and kind of like the mirror match can be impactful too. Just the fact that you're able to use it to kind of go 2-for-1 at times, like get a block and also trade with something 4K or less is great, and just like another volcanic break for more pressure. So very solid list. Congrats congratulations to Tim for their first place winner here, or first place finish in this one, being our first Grand Open champion. Should be really excited for him, and that is there. So congrats to Tim there. And then next up for second place, we have Admassu Williams with this white aggro list, and he was playing this deck very, very well this weekend, and it's there's just a lot of creative choices I think that he made for this one specifically. You'll make some notices if you haven't noticed. There's no Ice Shield in this deck whatsoever. There's no Nexuses either. And he did have an interview with Hoang as well. And both interviews with our first and second place winners will be on the day 2 VOD. It will be towards the end of the stream. So you guys can watch those interviews if you guys want to see them. But man, just very, very strong decks in general. And specifically for this one, it's incredibly strong. I think one of the MVPs for this deck is the Valkyrie Mist. This card's obnoxiously strong. There's just so many times where you can play this on curve, and since it has 3 reductions, you really only need to pay 2 to play it at full the full value for it. So being able to use 1 core to get rid of it and then put 1 to sustain it. This just gets you so much tempo, and like turn 1 where you just play, I don't know, like a Pega Sione or something, and then your opponent plays something, and then on your turn 2 you can easily just go from you can play like a Mecha Wing Duck for free, and then you can play like a Bullet Ray for cheap, and then you can play the Valkyrie Mist, you bounce back what they got, and now you have 4 attacks into your opponent's life. So that's a play that I saw a lot, is very great. And then Regain can just finish you on the spot on that turn 2 because it only cost 1, which is absurd. So there's just a lot of potential power from this deck in general if your opponent's not expecting it. And I think just being able to sneak wins like that is very, very strong for it. Derm Dyna, again, if you need to snipe that win. Suppression, if you need to go more of a mid-range strategy. This can catch a lot of people off guard too. And sometimes you do just need to spend 2 cores to make something plus 3k, which happens sometimes. So just a really strong deck. If you guys haven't played against this deck, you're very lucky. You can just win almost immediately at times. It's very strong. So congratulations to Admassu for their finish there. Very, very impressive for that one. And then we do have Kevin Castillo with his yellow Fabled Beast. Again, we had a lot of Fabled Beast tops in this event. If you guys want to see all of them, I highly recommend it. And it's definitely something that caught me by surprise. It's something that I didn't think that a lot of people would be on this deck, or at least it wouldn't be getting more eyes on it until we had a dual legal, which isn't for this event, but is literally today it is. So any event moving forward, you are able to play that Fabled Beast for a second blessed target, but very strong. And I will say, like, Hippocampo in this meta where there's just a lot of decks that are very aggressive at times, this is a really strong card. Being able to attack, being able to make it so that your opponent has to play a little bit differently, because there's a lot of times where your opponent would just kind of be aggressive and they attack first, and then you're able to just play Hippocampo and attack. You get to get your heal back immediately, and being able to do that damage to your opponent, it's just like a really good 2-for-1 that kind of catches your opponent off guard, at least right now. So I think the fact that like this blessed card is Fabled Beast and you get to get a lot of value from it is very good. We also see some additional cards in this one. So we do see the Elephant in this one only at 2, and I wonder how much this stayed in the main deck. I would assume that in faster matchups you switch back out of it, but then in like purple it can get a lot of value for you. We do also see the Pegasaurus, which traditionally we don't see a lot of right now. It is the kind of the star deck rare from for yellow, and then for level 3, for only 3 cores, when this spirit attacks, select 2 of your spirits that cost 2 and you get to refresh them, which is great, and then all your spirits that cost 2 gain plus 2 KBP. So that can help you get some wins as well, and just kind of push for some damage. A lot of them were also just running just a lot of the vanilla Fabled Beast, and in general this weekend too, just so many decks did not care that the card was vanilla. They just looked at the base power, and the fact, like, for 2 cores that this can get out of Burning Force Rage is just enough. I think, again, like, Burning Force was such a prevalent card for this weekend that being able to play cards that were able to easily get out of range for it, so like the Car Bulk, and you'll see some other cards from it too, but even like if you look at Admassu's list again real quick, like you can play Mobile Golem for, it's reduced to 1 and then 1 to sustain it, and then it's a 4K, which gets out of it. And very similar to the Emperor Door as well. So like both these cards being able to be untouched by the burning forces means that these investments for them are just very worth it. Even though they're just vanillas, they don't really do anything that can be very impactful. So I think a lot of decks kind of adapted to the strategy. There's just a bunch of vanillas, where traditionally I think people have chosen the cards with effects, and because of that, you get to be powerful enough to get out of kind of these BP thresholds that your opponent's kind of going for there. So I also say that this deck is great because I think a lot of people are on white control going into this meta, and white control traditionally doesn't have a lot of defenses against yellow. Angelic Pressure, and people are teching this card in just because it's very good against white in general. The fact that Exhaust Nexus is very great too. Pentan is very good, especially since if you really think about it, it counts as a reduction for every spell in the game. Or just being able to use this to have the Burning Force cost one less just because he's out is great. So, and you can stack them if you have more than one. So I think Pentan for your magic support is great, and I don't know. I'm going to definitely test out yellow more, and just the fact that again Nova wasn't here this weekend, or it wasn't very. It definitely didn't top right. Meant that I think a deck, an archetype like yellow, can survive a little bit more because everyone's initial testing, everyone was on Nova, and it didn't do very well against that. So it's definitely something that I wasn't expecting for this event, and a very, very welcome surprise. So congratulations to Kevin for their top 4 finish there. Then we do have our white control list. So this is Ryan Mattis' list, and this is looking a little bit similar to the list that did get first place for our North American launch event back in March, and there are a couple of choices for this one. This is a super duper control heavy list just by looking at it. You have just so much removal. You have a lot of your reductions. We're playing 4 Pegasones in the main, 4 of the Snowflakens in the main. Valkyrie Mist again, I think this card is great, and I sometimes just see people run 2 or 3. No matter you control or not, this just kind of sets up the tempo for the game. It buys you a turn a lot of the time, which sometimes you just need that for an additional core. Very, very good there. We got Buffalo Long Bill, good old favorite there, and the Elephant, and then just a lot of magic cards as well. Dream Bomb, I think, was a fantastic card for a lot of decks this weekend. Suppression as just another copy of Absolute Ice Shield at times, and this if you're able to set this up, it's just a better copy of it too, because Absolute Ice Shield buys you a turn, but this buys you a turn and can get the removal of one of your opponent's cards. So if you use if you block with something and then they attack with something else, you can suppression, and then you get the surprise block, and then get a deletion there. So that's very strong as well, and even a couple of copies of Dream Blizzard too, so being able to get some Nexus control. But in general, very obnoxious list. I think white control still can be in a really good spot if your opponent, if you just get a Pegasone and you're able to just put all the cores you need on it and just become a little bit of a wall, you can stop a lot of decks from kind of going off, which I think is good. So this is Ryan's list there. I don't think anything, a lot of 1s and 2s. I don't know. Suppression is also probably one of the strongest cards in this game. I might make a list of my top 10 favorite Magic cards right now, and it's not going to be Magic the Gathering, but I mean Magic cards in Battle Spirit Saga, and I definitely think Suppression is going to be on it. It's the longer this format goes, the more value I see it, and that's why you see it teched in even a lot. You'll see a bunch of red Terrasaur lists, not Tim's, but a lot of red Terrasaur list would tech in. And I wouldn't be surprised if some of the Fabled Beast decks also tech the card in as well. So anyways, this is Ryan's list. We got 2 more to go over. So this is Spencer Freeman. They're both purple lists, but we got Spencer Freeman's purple control list, and this is probably closest to the kind of style that I play in this game right now. Purple's in a really weird spot where out the gate, I would say it was the strongest deck going into this game, and now I think it's not super great. It does get a lot of value. It does have a lot of removal, but just the fact that the cycle isn't as there as much is kind of rough, and just the fact that you do have the answers, but if you don't see it, it's bad. You kind of depend on your nexuses for draw, which are incredibly removable right now with how important Burning Force has been in most decks. A lot of decks with who don't run the color will get it. But I do say Maduke is such a good checkmate card in this format right now, especially against if you were expecting to play against white control, this can just win you that matchup a lot of time, which is great. And then which is also why you see some in the side. The Angelic Pressure again for white control is very good there too. Being able to, out your opponent's head Ice Maid Fulla can be very important as well. Just the fact that, and I do appreciate the fact that it's only purple cards. So you don't see any Burning Forces, so there's no Nexus removal in this list. And additionally, there is no there's no Starblast draw, which again, like Starblast draw kind of fell off a little bit for this event too, which is really interesting. Not a lot of decks are playing when summoned effects, and you would kind of be afraid to put it down, in burst if you don't expect your opponent to play any of those. So I think that's something that's really interesting as well. But just the fact like this is mostly mono purple. There's also the core drain, which there are just so many different like core removals magic cards right now that I definitely dislike the fact that this only removes cores from exhausted spirits and the fact that it only happens during the main. But additionally, if you can just pay 1 to remove 3 cores from something and get the removal, that can be very strong in its own right. So that's something. And I haven't really mentioned this, but I think that the longer this meta goes, this plus 2k BP on like main flash, there's a lot of magic cards that have this kind of thrown in. I think that's going to be more and more powerful as time goes on. And I think being able to get that sneak plus 2k or 3k BP will, since suppression's already been doing so good with that kind of effect, I think it's going to kind of sneak back into some of these other magic card decisions we have. But again, I do like purple a lot. This seems like a very, I don't want to say like negatively basic, but just the fact that this is very straightforward. You know what you want to do. I think Earth Spider Demon is probably one of the best cards in the deck too. The fact that it's a 4, the fact that it can get that soul removal on like an attack means you can be aggressive and also like, proactively get rid of those cores, which is great. And I think that's great as well. So anyways, this is Spencer's list. He did get a couple games on stream as well, so make sure to check those out if you guys want to see them. And congratulations on that top 8. And to wrap it up today, we do have Daniel's top 16 purple aggro, and I kind of said it in the beginning of the video. I didn't really know what kind of name to give this. Purple is very good at being very flexible in its deck builds, and you'll see like what's like the Maduke archetype, when's like the Cursed Dragon archetype, and this one had 4 copies of Dark Dread Knight Nemesis. I'm like, that's generally like aggression or at least mid range, so that's kind of what I named it. But I think this is a really interesting list for what it is. There is like a lot of the low to the ground kind of aggression. We do have the Camelot Knight, Demo Bones, Aglovale, and also Dragonaga Assassin, which is kind of what made me kind of tip the scales for it being more aggressive style for it. But just the fact like the Rotting Swamp, which also tends to be you're aggressively attacking with your cards with curse, and they either block it and then you get to draw a card and trade, or you get to hit that life, which is important, and just kind of everything else that goes with this list. So, but yeah, the Dread Knight Nemesis is really interesting at 4 copies of this guy, and it's one of the more unique cards, I think, in this game. It has when the spirit attacks, select one of your spirits, and you get to destroy it to activate one of the following. You can select one of your opponent's spirits, place up to 2 cores from it into the reserve, or you get to draw 2 cards. So honestly, I'm guessing that the draw 2 cards from this deck was just very, very good for what it is, especially like if it was like an Aglovale or something, or even like a Demo Bones, which you get to play for 1 for pretty cheap, and then you can Nemesis away to draw 2. I think is a good trade for the deck. And also then it has your one destroys, your opponent selects one of their spirits and destroys it. So you do have to be at level 2, so 3 cores isn't too much for this guy, but being able to do that and say, you know what, I'll trade my Devil Bones, I'll get to draw 2, and then also if this is destroyed, and it's destroyed by anything. So we did see even some times when they would deadly balance their Nemesis away, which would mean your opponent would have to trade 1 for Deadly Balance and then 1 for Dread Knight Nemesis getting destroyed. So getting that like 2 for 2 is great, and I'm pretty sure you can choose to destroy itself on the attack, which could be also like a 3 for 1, 3 for 2 if you decide to remove 2 from it. So I don't know. I think like this deck is very interesting. I want to try it out more. I haven't really had a lot of experience with Dread Knight Nemesis, so that's definitely something I want to have some more practice with, and I think it's very interesting for it there. So anyways, that is Daniel's list, and that is going to be the video for me today. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you guys enjoyed the stream and enjoyed the event in general. I'm really looking forward to seeing our next grand opens and to seeing what this meta shapes up into, and it's really, really refreshing to see just how open the deck building is this game, that how unknown the meta is right now, and just what we're going to be seeing in the next couple weeks too, especially with their new TP promos that are now legal starting today as well. But that's going to be it for me. Again, thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I'll catch you all next time.
Damn it. Damn it.